strippers of Reddit. What's your weirdest story while working? When I was in college, I had this professor in a lecture hall who was a total narcissist. He thought all other books written for the subject was incorrect and had the class buy his own written and published textbook at a $700. To pass the class, we needed that book, so I had to buy it. One weekend night, the professor drops in for a dance, and in my mind I'm just like, he about to pay me back my money for his stupid textbook. Was able to give him a lap dance when mid-dance he asked me if he could stick his tongue in my belly button. I told him in a joking manner, "That'll be $700, baby." And what do you know? Got my money back. I'm pretty sure he didn't know I was one of his students, as he barely acknowledged his own students anyway. Worked with a girl who clearly had a death wish, BC. She'd leave with random guys all the time, and often would come in asking to borrow panties, BC. She'd bum rides from guys in exchange for sexual favors, and would be extremely graphic about how cum-soaked her panties were, and how she needed a new pair for work. Idk, why she wouldn't just pack an extra pair, or, not do that. But the shit that came out of her mouth and the things she did, incredibly strange. One of my co-workers is an ex-stripper. She has 1.5 million stories of creeps. Gropers, men who've requested disgusting things, and extremely aggressive and entitled lesbians. But here's one story that she likes telling. So she was giving a dance to this guy. He paid for a VIP room and she was giving him the full show as he paid for it, but he wasn't enjoying it at all. So about halfway through her routine, he just stands up and says, "What the hell am I doing? I gotta pay the car registration, gotta pick up the mail, mow the lawn, and 1,000,000 other things," and left. Dude went to a strip club on his day off, but couldn't enjoy it because he had a bunch of chores that needed doing. Went to a strip club, couldn't get his mind off what he should be doing, and left. Not a particularly funny story, but she always laughs because of how utterly ridiculous it is. I have a pretty strange story from many years ago that took place in a strip joint. I was working in Hawaii with a bunch of guys that traveled with our work. We used to go to this strip joint on Friday because we had money, and they had a good happy hour menu. We had this new guy come on the crew, was a heavy drinker, and we went down to the club that Friday, and we were all at a table eating, and the new guy was up at the stage, and there was a girl dancing in front of him. So the girl bends over in front of him, and he looks over to our table and puts on this big grin, and we thought he was pointing his finger at the girl's ass. But the next thing you know, he had planted it in no man's land up to his knuckle, and the girl let out a scream. We all jumped up to grab him, but the bouncers got there first. He got the beating he deserved, and none of us objected. We left him there and went back to the hotel and threw his shit on the sidewalk. He showed up at 3 a.m, banging on the door, but we ignored him. Our club had a guy we called the Measure Man. Little old Asian man that would take a girl for a dance and just ask her to stand still while he took her measurements with a tape measure. Never said what for and didn't speak the whole time. Our guesses ranged from he was making a life-sized sex doll to personalized coffins for when he murdered one of us. I was the bartender at a strip club for a few months once. I have seen and heard some crazy stories, classic strip club stuff, but this one time, a customer brought in her pet parrot to the bar. I obviously spent the rest of my shift talking with the parrot. His name was Pickle. He tipped me $1. He was a real gem. This art professor from a local university would bring a camera and little glass table that he would lay under in the VIP room while girls crushed tubes of paint with their heels. Afterwards, he would have the girls walk all over his chest. He had scars all over his body from where he had been cut up by the stilettos. He was a regular, so we'd always let him into the VIP room alone to set up his things. One time, he brought in a shallow cardboard box that he had hollowed out on the bottom and put on the table. Halfway through the VIP room, girl runs out screaming, and she'd looked down, and the top of the cardboard box had curled over to reveal that she was stepping on several little white mice. Dude was only kicked out for a few months, but never allowed to bring his equipment back in again. I feel like most dancers have countless stories. Hard to find weird ones because they're all a little odd, and it becomes normal over time. One man spent over $1,000 on me over a couple hours. I massaged his back and he fell asleep in a champagne room. When he woke up, he said, "How did you know exactly what I needed?" After the champagne room, he wanted more time with me, and we went to do several private dances. He cried during them while I sat on his lap and sang to him and brushed his hair back, massaging his scalp with my nails. Another man came up to me, garbling about worshipping me and wanting to lick the bottom of my heels, suck the stiletto and drink my urine. It was so slow, and I was reading a book in the back of the club, so I was awfully surprised when someone approached me and unleashed all of that on me. My manager said he'd pee in a glass for me if I really wanted to go for it. One time I did a double dance with a customer who was a bachelor, just a regular dude. Anyways, me and this other girl end up giving this guy a few dances at the very end of the night. Then the lights come on and we have to wrap things up. We're all getting ready to leave the private room when he says, "I want to tell you ladies something. Tonight, I'm gonna go home and masturbate to the thought of you." We're like, okay, whatever, cool, thanks. Then he tells us he has more to say and goes on to look me dead in the eye and say, "Tonight, I'm gonna jerk off to the thought of you and then I'm gonna eat my sperm." What the actual fuck? The other girl goes, "That's nice," and books it out of there. So I'm stuck walking up with Jim Bob, the cum eater, because he follows me out of the room, and he keeps telling me about how he loves to swallow his own cum the whole way to the front of the club. Thanks, man. Now I have this conversation burned into my memory forever. Not really weird, but sad. One time I was doing VIP session, and this dude legitimately told me to stop dancing and basically broke down in front of me, telling me he was only there because his friends dragged him along to cheer him up. From what he told me, he caught his wife in bed with another man, and they recently just got divorced. He told me his now ex-wife told his kids that he was the one cheating, and his kids basically hated him now. I've never felt so bad for a total stranger all my life. We had this guy that would come into our club and offered to buy any fresh used tampons from any of the dancers for $40. No dances, no private shows, just the used tampon. Also, Jerry Springer's show about 2002-ish would cold call about once a month asking if we had anyone who wanted to go on the show. Guy was in with his 20-something son. I get the guy to go for a dance. We're in the booth nearest to the entry foyer area. Partway through the song, I look over and see a group paying the cover, one of which is a girl who is staring at us. Next thing I know, this chick has plopped down in the booth next to the guy goes. Hi, Dad. The whole family had come to the strip club. A few of us shared the same regular customer. Very, very nice, soft-spoken man, played the ukulele as a hobby and drank ginger ale in the club, always bought at least a half hour of VIP, often multiple hours, and tipped well on top. Absolute gem of a customer. The catch was that he had a combination of fetishes. He would wear a chastity belt with a chain on it so the girls could pull on it. He also liked to imagine he was a puppy and do this from the third-person role-play bit. Like, he would say if you and other dancer had a slumber party, what would you want Puppy to do? Would you put Puppy in his cage? I have lots of stories, but those are the weirdest that spring to mind. When I was a stripper, a customer visiting from Canada bought a lap dance, and while we were back there, he tried to talk me into going to his hotel to give him a hand job for $200. I declined multiple times. He took the hint and also came in his pants during the lap dance. He leaves. Life goes on. 8 years later, I'm a hairdresser in the suburbs, and who the fuck walks in? Hand job guy. I was the only one available, and I'm a professional, so I didn't say anything. He mentioned I looked familiar, and halfway through it seemed to dawn on him because he suddenly got quiet, paid, literally ran out, and never came back. Low. Cousin's friend is a former stripper, told this one at a family gathering essentially. This dude paid for the full VIP treatment room and all that. But 4 minutes in or so, he wanted to show his dogs. He spent the entire rest of the time showing her his dogs and videos of them playing. She asked him why he spent his money for the full VIP treatment just to show dogs. He said, "Oh, I just wanted to show my dogs to someone, but couldn't find another way." There was a guy who was super drunk and telling me he was there with his wife, but it's cool. They have an open relationship thing going on. Cool, whatever, none of my business. We go and start a dance. Maybe a minute in, this woman runs around his corner and starts screaming at him. He starts screaming back and pretty much tosses me to the floor and runs after her, dropping $100 in the process while also already having paid for the dance. I grab the money and try to find out what happened. I asked a waitress if she'd seen where he went, and she said he'd just been kicked out for choke slamming the woman into a wall. So I got to keep the money, which was kinda cool. Had another guy pay me $700 to literally just rub my feet for 2 hours. I hate foot stuff, people touching my feet, but fuck man, $700 during a day shift was pretty sweet. Not a stripper, but I did work in a strip club as a bouncer, which provided me a great story involving one of the girls. Her name was Robot. Totally cool chick which had quite a following with the locals. In particular, one regular of hers would come in once a week without missing a single week and get the same private dance from the same girl Robot. During his private dance, the man, who was a big fellow, weighing about 350 plus, would ask her to take her stiletto heels and put them down his throat, followed by a splash of creamer in his face. He paid her $400 each time. Not stripper, but was at a bachelor party. We were at a higher-end place where they just had one central stage, and it wasn't just girl get naked. They each had some kind of theme and dance. Like one girl was dressed like Batgirl and rode out a Batmobile Power Wheel car, and another girl was doing whips and stuff. So this girl starts doing a fire show and is swinging around these flaming bolos and then pours a circle of fire around her on the stage. Then she does the breath of fire and her face catches on fire. She's wildly patting at her head. Bouncers come running. Every guy at the stage hops up ready to help. But she gets the fire out and holds her hands up like I'm okay. It's fine. And everyone kinda nervously sits back down and she finishes out her show to the smell of burned hair. Everyone felt terrible for her and put out a lot of tips, but she left them all and just walked out without taking any money when she finished. Pretty sure she didn't have eyebrows and now had flame-induced bangs. I had a guy who paid for lap dances during which I sat on top of him, doing nothing while he verbally narrated a story about me as a goddess in some made-up pantheon he created, rising from the fucking sea and stepping on men's backs, etc., until he nutted in his pants. He exclusively referred to my pussy as a shrine. Also had a guy follow me around the club on all fours wanting to do puppy play. Another one pushed a cough drop down my sock into my toes and then had me leave it there for a while and then took it out and ate it. There was once a regular at one of my clubs who would ask you to pretend to be dead while you sat with him, and if you were good enough at it, he would buy a room with you where you would pretend to be dead while he pretended to embalm you. He was a no longer licensed mortician. A guy threw up on me during a dance. I'm a sympathy puker, so I immediately threw up all over him in return. I made him tip me $100 and leave $100 for the cleaning crew. This didn't happen to me, but I know a girl who got paid $150 to pee in a cup, and then the customer drank it. Not a stripper, but my buddies dragged me to a strip club when I was 18. I had a baby face, no facial hair, and felt so awkward. People kept looking at me like, how the fuck did you get in here? One stripper even asked me if it was past my bedtime. My friends thought it would be funny to buy me a private dance without telling me. This 40-year-old Latina MILF pulls me aside into a little booth. She closes the curtain and starts to do her thing. As she bends over, she lets out the loudest queef I've ever heard. Awkwardly enough, I laughed and she got up and left. I sat in the booth until somebody brought me back to my friends. Turns out they paid her close to $100 for that. I went home that night and told my girlfriend what happened, and she died laughing. I'll never be back to another strip club. There was a regular who would pay for VIP, ask you to sit with your legs open while he shined a flashlight right at your bits. He'd pay for half an hour at a time and just peer into the cavern like. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out new super interesting videos, and I also suggest you watch our other videos.